comps. You don't need to have the same team comp every game. We're still going to win 2 out of the 3.
I hate to say I'm lying. I knew Empire were going to come in and smash, but quite a surprise again. They won the first game and still said, screw it, we're going to change our team comp and just continue to dominate. And they did it in exactly the same fashion in that third game. But a fantastic start from Team Empire, who again, we haven't even seen their maximum level yet. Maybe that comes, but we can later on. But we can discuss that later on. For now, it is a slightly unexpected, unusual comp that we've seen from them. And again, going from Wraith and being like, oh, we don't really need the Wraith, let's get the Bangalore in there as well. The NA teams did wonder if that was a gimmick pick. Apparently it's not.
Apparently it's not at all. And I will say we're taking a look at TSM, 100 Thieves, and some of these teams, Xenox, that have really been a thorn in the side. Not as, unfortunately, at the top of our leaderboards coming into these first 3 games, but boy, have they made a difference in this lobby.
Yeah, certainly so. And look, honestly, Game 1 really did throw out some interesting storylines. Did the Optic and TSM early on, which, you know, Optic did go out early. Could they respond in Game 2? And, well, certainly was a little bit better. And the other thing has been sort of third parties and teams that have sort of been on the wrong end of those. One of those being my prediction of Crazy Raccoon from APAC North. Unfortunately for them, the first 2 games, both times getting third party. And obviously, I think the biggest thing, right? I mentioned Team Empire for one of the teams to watch. One of the reasons for that, consistency. And they were able to do that through all 3 games. But going into Game 2, that's when we really saw Team Liquid at their best.
Absolutely. And Bardoff, when we talk about fences making great neighbors, they don't, but they do actually end up in our late game more often than not here.
Yeah, we did certainly see some Watson action, which is fantastic. I noticed some Watson action in C versus D as well, so we've got a good spread of fences. I'd love to see it. Moving into match 3 again. Ultimately, we saw the same 12 kills from Empire to finish off the job, but we saw a late performance from Team Liquid once again as well. And I'd love to see some bunker busting as we're seeing here at Dome, halfway in, halfway out, make your way forward and try to do what you can. A difficult lobby for all concerned. TSM came 9th in that third game, so they're still in the mix certainly. And E6, they got 14 kills while finishing in 6th place, which has to be noted as well.
You're absolutely right, and I will talk about Team Comp for a minute. Team Liquid, known of course for their low buzz, and certainly has been helping them out here today. One of the things I love, especially when we add the mix of a regionality, are those team compositions, and we've touched on it in 1 through 3. But Xenox, let's talk to me a little bit about what you're seeing, and more importantly, what you're expecting to see as we go into World's Edge. Remember, we're Storm Point here, but World's Edge is a whole other ballgame.
It certainly is, and while I think going into Storm Point, maybe we didn't see as much Gibraltar really as I was maybe expecting, where it can definitely shine. Well, I think going over to World's Edge, you're going to see a little bit more bunker play, for example. I think we'll see a little bit more Caustic. I think also the Watson from APAC North should definitely shine if we are going to be seeing. We saw 4-7 bringing it out. I think that's where it can really benefit them.
100%. And we have our leaderboards here ready to go. We're going to find out what games 1 through 3 meant for so many. And boy, Bardoff, we're talking Team Liquid, Team Empire. They are but 2 points from each other, and yet here we go, TSM and Team Empire. That is a steady lead.
Yeah, I believe that Liquid got 4 kills in that last game, but consistency is key. The consistent deep runs will do you very well. But that early game from TSM, sometimes we've seen them start cold. They came in and got some points really early, and I think everybody wants to see that. You need your important dominant team to be consistent as well. So they got some early points on the board, and there's plenty of action to come. We've only just begun here.
We absolutely have, and of course, that was just 1 page of 2, and here we are. And you know, I will say this, and I certainly don't mean to harp on it, because GMT, I love them very much. They've been doing some great things coming into this tournament, but I'm looking at number 18 there, Xenox, and there's a reason for that, we're pretty sure.
Yeah, well, they've been trying to contest with Fennel over towards the wall on Storm Point. Didn't quite work out, fortunately for GMT. Of course, now going over to World's Edge, this is an opportunity for them to maybe really get into the thick of things. They're 3 games behind. It's not the end of the world, but they will need to obviously turn it around on World's Edge.
You're absolutely right, and I will say, this is them A versus B here. We're going to find out what the secondary stream has to say right now, actually, because we've got our leaderboards. So something to remember when A versus B, GMT is going to be contested. But let's take a look as we see, okay, you know what? Interestingly enough, Bardoff, we're seeing a much bigger point differentiation between 2 and 3 in our A versus B versus C versus D, which is pretty
Can we just note how concerned we were that Alliance might not even make it to this land? They came in the back door. They snuck in maybe through the window, I don't know, but they have started off really early as well. We saw an earlier leaderboard for C versus D, and NRG were not in the top half of that, so it's nice that they've got going as well. Cloud9 having a good day so far as well. So yeah, there's a little lead at the top. AD Raccoon, fantastic to see them up there, but again, there's going to be a lot of change as things move forward.
Absolutely. And I will also say number 4, Reignite, doing well despite being without Jen Burton, Xenox, as we take a look at number 2 here.
Yeah, and look, one thing I'm also looking at here at the moment for Group C versus D is actually there is a little bit of lack of consistency. A lot of these teams have had like one really good game or 2 really good games and then one kind of poor game, except for probably Cloud9, a 4th, 6th, and a 4th, showing that they've got that consistency, which should hold them in good stead moving forward. Of course, on the other side of the bracket here, look, you know, a couple of teams down the bottom, but honestly, when you look at the points, they're not too far away from being able to collect a decent amount, get over to the other side of the graphic.
Shout outs to Vega and Tatsu. They're in there as well. Tatsu on that Watson. So again, we got more. There's fences everywhere, man. Look out for them fences.
Vega, James loves you. Bardolph loves you. It's good. It's great. It's fantastic. And also something to mention, C9, you talk about Xenox, they are playing with a sub. So something else to consider, that there's a lot that goes into these storylines, and there's certainly a lot to mention here on LAN in terms of, you know, changing things up and having to deal with situations.
They're not the only team, right?
Absolutely.
And so in that way, you probably don't want to harp on it too much. You just got to kind of deal with the punches that are thrown your way, and the best teams will be able to deal with that.
Yeah.
I have to add, actually.
Please.
If you think about how crazy certain teams' comms are, Cloud9's are up there as the crazy, probably the craziest comms. So just sitting in between those guys and how hectic their comms are must be quite the experience.
Exactly. Well, speaking of experiences, let's take a look at what these players are going to be experiencing now as we change to our World's Edge map. And, you know, Xenox, we talk about Stormpoint being all about the elevation, all about that verticality. World's Edge, talk about some of those caustic players maybe are enjoying themselves a little bit more.
Yeah, and Stormpoint obviously very open, maybe less buildings to play through. Well, World's Edge is the complete opposite of that. And I think when you look at, say, APAC North, APAC South, they like the Watson, they like the caustic. That's going to be so important on World's Edge. And that's probably something we're going to want to keep an eye out for, especially the crypto play, get inside of a building, get those drones up in the air, get information. So this could actually be a chance, I think, for those regions in particular to really make their mark here at LAN.
Absolutely. And I will mention that we did see 2 teams on Stormpoint fielding that Loba. We saw 2 teams fielding the Watson. We saw 2 teams with crypto. And of course, that Bangalore, man. It's always great to see us change up those team comps. And I think that's something we're absolutely going to see going into World's Edge here as well, Bardolph.
Maggie is
here she
on the way. I'm telling you, if you're late on a rotation and all you have is a truck, if you're anywhere near Empire, you are going to be the subject of my amusement at the very least. That much is for sure.
I love it. I will say well done on your talent predictions here. Team Empire certainly is giving this lobby a run for their money. And my team prediction at that point, by the way, was a Phoenix team. They've been doing such great things. We talked about Jen Burton earlier. This is a Phoenix team that has come in and said, we have icons in this lobby. We have people that we watch, these players we have seen and do great things. And now this relatively new team from Brazil, they're coming in saying, we're going to be a part of this. We want that respect. And they're actually not doing too bad here in our lobby. And I want to make sure that they get the shout out they so rightly deserve. But Xenox, let's talk a little bit about APAC North as we go into World's Edge. I mean, you've mentioned it before. We've heard Watson discuss. We've heard Maggie coming in for our North America, or excuse me, our EMEA. What are you expecting specifically from the APAC North boys?
Probably seeing a little bit more center play, more towards the center of the circle rather on the outer edge. We were seeing probably a lot of edge play on Stormpoint. That should change up for World's Edge. They're going to want to get into those buildings, play off of their cryptos, play off of their Watsons. So, and then also for APAC South, touching on them, they do like to bring the caustic, same with North America. So
I think just respect that Watson is more important than Gibraltar.
Thank you.
In APAC North. I'm moving. I'm changing country. I'm on the way.
But these graphics are perfect though, because it really does highlight the difference between the regions. You know, Gibraltar 47%. You look at all of the other regions, Gibraltar's going to be in the top 3.
You're not wrong at all, for sure. And this, of course, from our Split 2 regular season, as we take a look at those picks. And I gotta say, it's always great to hear that. I also want to talk real quick about Optic. I think Optic came in and they made as much of a stage show as TSM did in the earlier games. I'm talking real quick, Bardolph. Optic was a thorn in the side of so many throughout this particular first 3 games. I'm curious your thoughts on what the Green Wall has done here, even though they haven't consistently got that W.
Yeah, we saw a lot of them in that second game, and you know they're just so confident. They just exude confidence, and they're rarely concerned. They're ready for any fight. And so they're a fantastic team to watch, and that has translated straight through to LAN immediately. I'm seeing no difference there. We're seeing how strong Skittle Cakes
Skittle Cakes.
can be. There we go, tongue twister. They had a very dicey situation where maybe they got some help from a third party, but they were able to survive it, able to stabilize afterwards. And that's the Optic Q1. Like I think at this point they're up there with TSM, where they're a team that you kind of you want like dominant champions who are always just causing a lot of people trouble. And I think for the most part, Optic have been that team in recent months, and they continue to be here in Stockholm as well.
Well, speaking of trouble, we've got a nice, we've got some comparison here that we want to make sure we showcase. And, you know, Bardolph, I'm going to stick with you for a minute because Team Empire, of course, your pick. This is a Valk. These are our two Valk players, Maliwan and Nocturnal, facing off. And curious your thoughts here. I mean, the truth is, even though 9 kills over on Maliwan's side and 11 on Nocturnal's side, it's still pretty consistent, pretty balanced.
Yeah, both these teams in the top 3 or top 5 at least. And again, the sample size is small right now, so we're not seeing anything too crazy. But we'll keep an eye on these two teams and players and see if they can separate from each other as the day goes on.
And we'll also see if they're going to be fielding that Valk going into World's Edge. Of course, a great rotation player, a great legend to use on Stormpoint. We've seen it again and again. Xenox, at this point, we are coming back for our next game, game number 4. We have, let's see, let me do the math here. We have 14 more games.
Don't do math on screen.
No, you're right. Where's Gaskin when I need it? At any rate, yeah, it's definitely something to think about. In terms of longevity and keeping these players going, again, we're only on game 4. How are you thinking? How are you feeling? How are you seeing these players keeping their heads held high?
It's a long day. It's going to be a long day, a lot of games, and that's why you don't really want to go too much energy too early on. You do need to pace yourself, but at the same time, they're just also important, these games. So you also don't want to go in too relaxed. I think consistency is going to be key. You don't need to be winning every single game. You just need to be performing well, and then you can obviously get results from that.
And there it is. That's exactly right. Well, speaking of results, perhaps you could get a result. By that result, I mean a Lenovo Legion gaming laptop, a Lenovo Legion 7 gaming laptop, excuse me. And to do that, head on over to twitter.com/Lenovo Legion. We're going to be giving one away at the end of our weekend on final Sunday. So remember, twitter.com/Lenovo Legion. And don't you worry, we will be right back because we've got more. We got game 4, in fact, and our newest cast-in duo are taking the stage after we get back from this break. Stick around. This is the Apex Legends Global Series Pro League Playoffs on LAN.
Herman Miller, the official chair partner of the Apex Legends Global Series.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the ALGS Split 2 playoffs. We're halfway through our first lobby, and that means caster change time. Elfish Guy and Genome all the way from APAC South on the mic from here on out for our very first lobby. And Genome, things are going to get a bit more interesting now. Not that they weren't interesting already. Obviously, we've seen Team Liquid, Empire really dominating this lobby. TSM having a good time so far as well. But we're swapping over to World's Edge, and that changes a whole lot.
I mean, there's been a lot of change already in this series, Elfish. I mean, Team Empire, the team that's sitting in second right now, only just barely behind Team Liquid, have so far changed their composition 3 times. In 3 games, they've played 3 different compositions, and somehow they are almost on top of this lobby. That is nuts. You do not see that every day.
That is certainly quite abnormal. Not something we see every day, but maybe that's something that's going to calm down heading here into World's Edge as well. Obviously, we know Stormpoint is the newer map into the competitive environment, so moving over to World's Edge, teams are going to be a little bit more familiar with what they like to run.
And it's not only the new map, Elfish, it's the fact that it's almost a new meta, right? We finally got that clash of all of the regions from around the world, all 5 of our ALGS regions coming together, and all those different compositions, we're just seeing them mashed into this blender of a playoffs here. And as a result, I think teams are still on the fly, kind of trying to work out how this goes. I mean, sure, they've had some scrims, there's been some boot camps, there's been a little bit of time for these teams to walk into this and try and work out how it goes. But when it comes to competition day, as we know in Apex, it's not always the same.
And, you know, that's what I love about a tournament like this as well, is that once you do bring all of these regions together, there's some semblance of maybe a mini meta developing within this one tournament itself. We may finish off the Split 2 playoffs, move into, you know, whatever comes after that, and everything gets changed up off the back of that. But at least here in this bubble of the Split 2 playoffs, you're going to start to see some interesting things come together. Maybe teams start to run crypto as a result of seeing so many Watsons, etc., etc. But that might not be the case throughout the rest of this year of Apex Legends. Either way, all that aside, we do have to focus in on what's coming up next, and that, of course, is going to be World's Edge. So everything that we've just seen on Stormpoint gets thrown out the window, so to speak. Maybe not necessarily, but World's Edge, hopefully for a lot of teams, is going to bring with it some semblance of a change, and for the couple at the top, they're going to hope to continue what they started.
Well, the North American teams doing pretty well on that front, Elfish. As we said, TL and TSM both up there in that top 3. The other one rounding that out is, of course, the team on your screen right now, Team Empire.
Extended heavy mag here.
If we can't get back of Overlook, what should we play?
Um,
Like the 2-story building?
yeah, probably.
I'm 6-0.
Blue light.
14-1.
I'm
I
8-1.
am 12-0.
No alt cells.
Yeah, I didn't find any either. We should just leave so anyways. I don't really care what meds that we have. Are we ready?
Yeah.
Yep.
Let's go. Grab as many meds. I don't want to, like, make sure we have a lot of meds. Okay. Okay. I'm 10-1.
14-1.
You're not going to have Valkyl, right?
No.
Okay, okay. We're gonna have to just take the zip across. Okay?
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Is there one here in the bin? I have 12 cells now?
I'm wingman car.
Should be good for now. I'm Havoc Massive with no mag.
Massive wingman.
Need
I don't-
cog.
Do we see scars? Wait, on my right. I hear somebody on my right. They zipped.
I'm gonna go under the tower.
They're running to my right. Shoot the Gibby, shoot the Gibby. He's almost cracked. Okay, there's cells inside. I'm gonna keep moving, I'm gonna keep moving. Wait, there's traps somewhere. They're running towards the back.
Team flying
Yeah,
in.
team flying in.
We can scan this area.
There's traps inside here, be careful. We're good, we're good.
I only have 55 heavy for wingman and 120 light.
I have 160 heavy.
I have
Okay.
120 energy.
Hold your heavy for now.
I'm 12-1.
I am 12-0. We might get spam crypto EMP'd here.
Maybe.
They're peeking the left side of scaffolding.
Optic will probably land on them.
Yeah, they will. In the very back.
Maybe third that. With a portal.
Someone's walking up, I think.
Wait, what?
Just play it. Don't just sit in a corner. Like, expect stupid. Expect stupid, please.
Need to save our meds right now.
I have an extra Phoenix.
I need 87 damage.
They're just in the building right next to us to our west. Crypto team.
Alright. Flying in! Clear!
Let's go this way.
Crypto EMP on the main building. I think we're not getting EMP'd.
Mm-hmm.
Big 2-on-1 to win.
Didn't even get any finishes. Strikers are going to be able to get the revives and be up and away. Not only that, it does give them the, you know, the chance to try and take this POI going forward. We'll have to see if that other team can test them again in Game 5 and Game 6 in this lobby. But, you know, if you're going by the really, they should be giving it up and moving on.
Yeah, well, either way, we'll have to wait and see how that all plays out.
I mean, it really felt like Phoenix could have waited a little bit there and double swung together.
sure,
As you
for
said,
sure.
the Valve just pushing up by themselves. I don't think that was their best play, and it turned it around into that 1v1 where Waltzy, with the stun on the missile swarm, able to clutch up.
It might have been a little bit of a miscommunication there, because I really did think that there was time for the reset, maybe pop a bat, something like that, just take that 2-on-1. But ultimately, you can't afford to be making mistakes like that at a competition like this, because you're going to get punished by the best players in the world. Here we go into the top 17 now as Team Empire have run into an opponent. They've been doing so well today, but maybe things start to come unstuck. It's a Crypto, the EMP lands. Cleaver's down on the floor immediately as Ranches and Malawan trying to clutch it out, but ultimately it is not looking too good for them at all. Ascend, 3 players online, and certainly winning this engagement quite easily.
All of the European teams going up against each other here. It looks like it's going to be an oval circle, which is why these teams had to try and make their way into the tunnel, but there's not really anywhere to run once you get in here, so they kind of have to take the fight. You can see the Gibby just trying to bounce up and down behind this balustrade here.
That's another team, I think, coming in.
Shotgun.
There's a third party arriving. Reject joins the party. And then down to just the 2 players are looking a little bit worse for where it's an absolute slaughterhouse right here in the tunnel. Bub goes down to provide some time for the reset for Ascend. Unfortunately, no res available just yet, as Kushera is going to be finished off by Dogma. But at least Ascend is able to get those bats off and get themselves healthy, at least to find out 2-on-3.
You can see they're really struggling right now, but he go with one more down. Missile swarms. We've got arc snares and arc stars coming in from the side. This is going to be very hard, and 100 Thieves are looking to thieve away a couple of these kills.
Yeah, and I don't think Ascend is particularly interested in hanging around any longer. They're going to be chased down. Reject know they need to win this fight. They need to get these points, because there's a very good chance that if they don't, they get sandwiched by 100 Thieves and ultimately finished off. It is Dogma to try and push his way forward. He does have the advantage. Eva 8 comes out and lands the shots. Ascend are eliminated 15th, but Dogma really is going to have to get a wriggle on. He can't stay there.
I mean, he wins that fight with about 10 health, and they're strafing there. We're using the Eva 8. Really, it was the movement that won him that battle. And look, some of the APAC North players, it's what we know them for, those incredible movement mechanics.
Unfortunately, it hasn't helped him out. Reject immediately get eliminated straight up, and so it's one of those situations, right, where you get into an early fight, someone's going to start having a bit of a sniff. They're going to be hearing those shots, and that wasn't just someone or one team or 2 teams. It ultimately ended up being a 3 or 4 or 5 team kind of skirmish, and all of a sudden we're down to 13 teams left.
You're locked in, right? Because once you're in that tunnel, as we said, like, what are you going to do? Take the zip line up? I mean, you know there's a couple of teams up the top watching there. Not really much cover to play once you go up there, so you kind of have to just... it's a dog-eat-dog world.
Ready, squad.
Yes, indeed. With that said, things are probably going to slow down a little bit now. We've obviously lost a lot of teams really, really early on to this game. Like, this is Ring 1 only just closing now. We've only got 13 teams left. So that is quite abnormal. Normally, you're going to have a lot more teams than that at this point in the game.
Yeah, a couple of contests at the start. Teams even third-partying those contests. That's where a couple of those come from. You know, the other ones, I guess, you know, really just, yeah, rotations through this circle towards Overlook, where a lot of the teams who like to rotate early have definitely gone in there, you know, Fascination Colors destroy. Not one of those. Probably, I would actually say, the most aggressive out of the 40 teams we have here at the ALGS playoffs for Split 2. And that's why they are going the other way, Elfish. They're not going towards Overlook. They are going towards the enemy, and that is the only way they know how to play the game.
Oh, interesting position for Team Liquid at the moment as they're just stuck inside of the zone at Harvester. Why don't we have a listen in and see what they're thinking as we head into our first game of World's Edge.
As long as they're leaving me alone, I don't care.
Shit, who would have thought scrims were realistic? Wow.
Looking for a standard stock.
Do you need anything fun? I have 50 crafting. I could craft your armor once.
Can you craft a flatline actually? I want to drop the charge.
Yeah, I can do that.
Actually, no, never mind. Everyone has fucking heavy. This is way too much heavy needed. That's fine, you can stay on charge.
Let me craft your armor then, fun.
Here?
You can heal yourself too. Grab your bat.
Shield battery here.
Body shield here. Level 4.
Open supply bin here.
I'm good to go. I'm 4-4. Good.
I have 1 syringe.
I'm 228. Here, here, Guild, pass me your armor.
Alright.
I'm gonna drop you a syringe as well. Do you have no medkits?
I have 1 med kit. I have 6 bats, 9 cells.
Can you take this? Take this and drop me 2 bats.
Alright. How many cells do you both have?
Thank you. 4.
Okay.
I'm 228. My red heals are kind of shambles, but I've double medkit, 1 syringe.
Optics here. Mid range.
Do we want to try and like play for res beacon hill?
Down.
There's
bridge.
just like somewhere to capitalize on using the charge.
Yeah. There's a WAP over here we can get.
Down. There's a lot of teams dead.
Oh, interesting to hear the thoughts from Team Liquid, obviously playing on the edge, doing a bit of replicating their genome. They looked fairly stacked, but I did really appreciate the fact that they were saying how this game really felt like it was playing out like a scrim, and I guess that is probably what I was thinking as well. 13 teams alive this early on in the piece, it really is quite abnormal, but them's the breaks, right? When you're going to be playing this kind of a format, this kind of a situation where, you know, you haven't played against a bunch of these teams before, you're being thrown into a bunch of different lobbies, teams are dropping in different spots all over the place, you know, it's going to be like that.
They were making that comparison to scrims, and you know, we heard a lot of players talking about this, being like, oh, this is not what the real tournament's going to be like, but I mean, these are the best teams from all the regions around the world. There's some big egos in here, Elfish. Like,
100%.
are they just going to give up their drop spots even if they lose a couple of contests in the scrims? Maybe not. We're definitely not seeing it right here.
Well, I think the thing is as well, you have to consider today is not technically an elimination day, so you are fighting for control of your drop spot for the rest of the tournament, and this is the best time to do it, even if you're losing, because you can't get eliminated from the competition. Yes, you can go down into the lower bracket tomorrow, etc., make life difficult, but you can still make it work. So Dacky's going to go on a Valkyrie, rotate all the way around to Overlook, and they're going to drop right underneath the team who's on top of the silos. This doesn't look like a fun place to be. Having to clear out those barrels.
Yeah, that's Optic Gaming up the top there, actually.
Split.
So they're right underneath them. You can see they've had to try and use a gibby ult there just to put some suppression down on the team on top and give them a little bit of time to try and find their way around. Duplex is looking for the angles as the team right underneath. Ooh, flash!
And I should have said it was actually Ducky that was split once his bullet went down a little bit further toward the cliff side rather than...
He's gonna get the res off. Like, eat my ass, bro. Like, Jesus Christ.
They're getting naded off silos. They're still on it.
I'm 9-1.
9-1.
11-0.
Got me 40 heavy, Jordan.
You have a portal. I have 100 heavy.
Dead.
Like,
I have 10. I'm done
you gotta
shooting.
like stop shooting so much, man. I have 60 bullets now.
It's fine, you have wingmans.
So does he.
I just wanted to get blue. I had to get 2 blues.
I'm 1 shot off purple, and then we need to like chill
on
our shots. They're rezzing or something.
Where?
I don't know. I heard a res like over here. I think.
Let's check out this way.
South.
13 teams alive.
Yeah. Nobody has died that landed all the way in the back of silos.
Yeah.
Like at all.
They're just stabilizing back there somehow. One of the teams went to the choke.
You can hit the beacon.
Keep an eye on that crypto team, yeah.
This portal has been there for. Oh, there he goes. Just went away. Elevate just died too.
I'm 9-0.
You're getting Gibby all to the northwest.
At 59 heavy, I thought to save my ammo.
Yeah, I'm 51.
I have 50 energy extra.
We cannot afford to shoot right now.
We're trying to look for kills right now. Gibby all over here, I think, yeah.
This way.
They're running out in the open here, but I can't shoot because I don't have ammo.
Gold. Hard.
Using that opportunity to try and push forward. Star actually getting the knock onto Fun, and all of a sudden Team Liquid now look like they're going to start to struggle. Caustic Gas gets tossed inside of the bubble. Winnie is doing so much damage right now with that devotion, and surely this will be the end of the rampage of Team Liquid. Element 6 getting a third party though. TSM, as has been the case, have been the third party kings of this lobby, and they rock up to just play spoiler in this battle between Team Liquid and Element 6.
Not the case. Winnie now. As Nags have got to try and make this work. It looks like they've made enough space here to get the revive off.
But now teams are getting that info as well, by the way,
Yeah,
that circle's going south. So, you know, look, it's nice to win the fight there and be able to pick up the res and do what you need to do, but that is costing critical time that you could be using to rotate. Hopefully, they've got the Skyward Dive available there on Nags.
They're about to run into one of those other edge teams, Elfish here. FC Destroy, they've been prowling the edge of the circle, looking for someone else to take down. And look, Element 6, they're actually the next team in the firing line if they go too far to the west.
Solon said he wins the race, maybe, is the mantra here for Element 6. As they really aren't doing a whole lot at the moment. Again, like we've mentioned, probably do have that Skyward Dive available, can use that to rotate their way in. But I just worry with how much of this zone is kind of unplayable terrain. How easy is it going to actually be to come in late?
It's going to be very tough. I mean, there's actually, there was a playoffs ending for APAC South that we saw here once, and I've got to tell you, it was Natsuru-sama on the Caustic. He absolutely did a fantastic job of locking off space with the Caustic traps there. Look, Crazy Raccoon maybe don't have that option, but I think one of the teams like Element 6 with the Caustic, if they can make that rotate early enough, can do some damage in that way. But yeah, it's like, where do you land at that point? There's going to be teams Valk holding in and just sending it last moment. Still a lot of Valk picked up despite all the diversity and compositions we've seen so far. But when those Valk ults come in, there isn't a lot of playable space, and absolutely the teams who are already established on the ground are going to be taking a lot of shots at them.
3 sets of red armor from FC Destroy, and an interesting team composition being brought in here as well. Bloodhound, Horizon, and of course Gibraltar. So they seem to be having a pretty solid game for themselves. Only 90 damage done here from laziness, so it may not be coming from the damage dealt necessarily as replicating and hovering through some loot boxes, but they're going to try and take this fight. The Team Burger that they're up against at the moment, the scans are coming through. They're only spotting 4 or 5 players around here. They know that there's probably not much going on aside from that fight against Burger. They've had to force out the defensive bombardment, and Burger is really just on the run. They don't want a bar of this.
The Horizon all coming in now as well. If you connect with that, it's almost impossible to win the fight. Honestly, a couple of grenades on top of that, and you are done for. Burger, they are done for. 4-7 also going out. We're seeing the gravity lift come out to amazing effect here from FC Destroy, getting some great damage onto TSM, who were on top of the silo. Had high ground, probably thought they were in a fantastic position. They turned their back for one moment, and that is what happened.
Yeah, but this is not going to be a fun place to play from. Look at the angle Caustic has at the moment. Skittle is able to drop RPR. That one is going to be confirmed straight away. Optic Gaming farming up. And they are loving it. There's so many death boxes around as well to armor swap on, to grab some loot from.
Oh, this next rotation is going to be so tough. It's like the teams don't even want to make it. They are basically fighting in Overlook before they make that Valve rotation because they probably know that when they get in there, it's just going to be crazy raccoons lining them up as they stream down from the sky.
Yeah, most definitely. Scars down to the 2 players, IPN and Typhine. Obviously one of those teams that did have to make a substitution, having had a relatively okay start to this lobby. Looking to pick things up, a top 6 so far for this game. Not too bad, but instantly eliminated as I bring it up. So, a bit of a casting curse involved there maybe, sorry lads. Element 6 were the benefactors alongside Sutoraiku.
Yeah, so they're holding outside of the circle right now, but there's 3 teams, as you can see here. Straiku, we've got Optic Gaming, and I think the third one might have just gone down, actually. All clashing into each other, while Element 6 just look on from afar and maybe try and get the final bullet and add some KP to their total in a very sneaky fashion.
I mean, I don't mind the way that Optic is playing this one out, right? They've really controlled their side of the zone, and that's about as good as you can do in a zone like this one. I believe this is Sutoraiku in front of them, who have just tried to hold themselves down inside of this valley to lock down the rotation. They've been doing a pretty good job of finding some KP themselves, but this is going to be the fight that they need to win. Excuse myself, it is Element 6, by the way, on the other side of it, and that is short work made of Optic Gaming, as they just dispatch of them in the blink of an eye. There's another couple of points on the board for Element 6, who are actually really putting together a very nice game right here. It might be coming to an end, though, as 100 Thieves do arrive. They've been third-partying all game, and they're making it work this time as well. Sutoraiku eliminated in the kill feed. I can see there for top 3 now remaining. Crazy Raccoon looks like the power team.
They have been waiting for their moment to strike. They made so much space for themselves in this circle. It feels like no one else has occupied it with them for pretty much the entirety of this 4th game. Now that the other teams are just locked into, look at that, the tiniest skerrick of space there at the back. Crazy Raccoon are going to dominate this.
There they are. Element 6 at least able to eke out a 2nd place, but end of the day, we all knew it was coming. It's Crazy Raccoon who will walk away with the first win on World's Edge at the Split 2 playoffs. I know Xenox is going to be cheering in the green room. He did predict them as the team to top this lobby, so maybe there was something in that. We'll have to wait and see. Obviously, though, Genome, a very favourable circle pull for Crazy Raccoon. They were already on that southern side of the zone when that circle pull came through. Almost every other team had already rotated north into Overlook. So, you know, you gotta take these opportunities when they present themselves, don't they? Like, you can't get that kind of a circle pull and then do nothing with it. So it's great to see Crazy Raccoon being able to pull that one off and capitalize on the opportunity that was presented.
No, they certainly didn't. And look, we've had winners from EU, we've had winners from NA already today, and now APAC North taking out a dub here in our first mainstream matchup.
Yeah, certainly. Fantastic to see as well, right? We want to see that diversity. We want to see teams really representing their region and pulling for themselves and for the region as a whole. Crazy Raccoon, a pretty solid win there. Obviously, 8 kills. It's not the biggest we've seen today, but 20 points on the board out of that game. And considering they have been having a relatively reasonable start to the day, I think that's a pretty good result for them. Element 6, we touched on them a lot during that game as well, didn't we? We constantly saw them fighting, and they've gotten a good amount of points out of it.
They just had that great gatekeeping position between that newly established link into the east side of Overlook, and they played it really well. They couldn't get it all the way there to the end because, honestly, Crazy Raccoon, they made so much space for themselves, right? And that's what you expect out of those teams that are at the top of their region. I think it was, what, a 2nd finish for them in Split 2. And yeah, look, they really forced everyone out, and it made it such an easy finish.
One thing to note as well, Team Liquid, this is their first time outside of a podium finish in this lobby. Obviously, when we were looking at Stormpoint, they finished 3rd, they finished 1st, and then they finished 2nd. So I guess as far as the rest of the lobby is concerned, it's kind of nice to see Team Liquid having a bit of a struggle there as we start off World's Edge, because, you know, that's what's going to have to occur here if someone wants to catch them. They've got a pretty solid lead at the moment. They're 20, 30 points above most of the competition, barring obviously Empire and TSM maybe. So if anyone's going to catch them with only 2 games left, Team Liquid kind of has to drop the ball a little bit. And the same thing happened for Team Empire too.
Now looking at our champion squad here of Crazy Raccoon, Ras. Everyone knows this player as just the most incredible mechanical monster in the game. And you can see leading the way there with almost 1,800 damage and 4 kills for his team as well. I mean, look, just to give some love to our APAC South fellows there, we did see Striker having a decent game here in game 4, you know, and you got to remember that was off the back of taking that thermal contest as well. You know, I talked to them a little bit earlier yesterday, and they were saying how they were actually expecting it to be really quite hard to play Edge because so many teams are just going to go hard into the ring with you know, this LAN playstyle, right? But they're forced to play Edge when they have those early contests like that.
All right, well, let's take a look at the leaderboard here as it stands. Team Liquid have only put 1 point on, and so have Team Empire. Only 1 point out of that game for both of those two teams, which has really closed the gap. Element 6, big benefactors of that. They've jumped up into 3rd place. TSM drop a couple as well, down to 5th. So there's a lot of moving and shaking still going on here in our very first lobby, groups A and B. We do have 2 games remaining, though, and I think, you know, you've still got a lot of teams that are within striking distance of taking a top spot at the moment. That said, if you're on this side of the scoreboard, and if you've only got single digits at the moment, you know, for Ascend down to Zen, it's starting to become a little bit too late to really think about a top placing. You just have to now get as many points on the board as you possibly can.
Yeah, look, that said, you know, this is the first series of the day, right? There's 3 rounds that these teams will be playing today. You know, it's a cumulative score at the end of all of those 3 rounds that will determine whether you're going into that winner's bracket or into that loser's bracket. So, you know, look, we don't have to, you know, write the name on the tombstone just yet for a team who doesn't perform in round 1.
I mean, I guess you're right, but in the context of the way this day is going to play out, like, this is a massive day of Apex Legends. So if you don't start well, some of that tilt factor maybe starts to get involved, and it makes it more difficult towards the back. And we are going to update you guys on how the secondary stream is going as well. Looks like there's been a few changes there too. AD Raccoon sitting at the top of the C and D groups. Obviously, another one of those teams coming through from APAC North, which is very, very impressive for the region. We did see Reignite sitting in 2nd earlier on when we checked in with this leaderboard, but they've dropped down fairly substantially into 6th. Obviously, playing with a sub makes life a little bit difficult. Team Singularity at the bottom of the table there as well. You know, they're playing with a sub too, so there's a whole lot of that going on, Genome, and I think you have to say, you know, just get in there, give it a crack. This is a good opportunity for a lot of teams to sort of start to get a feeling of with how things are playing out here as well in the Split 2 playoffs, because it's still early days. There's still a lot to play. There's always still tomorrow as well, regardless of how things go today. For now, though, we do have to take a short break. We do have a couple more matches coming up for our very first lobby of the Split 2 playoffs, so don't go too far away. We'll be back on the other side.
살린다. 오케이. 야, 오른쪽 가자. 나 코스 찍는다. 오케이. 나 위로 갈게. 코스 캐피. 코스 잡았다. 나이스. 저들 이 새끼야. 나이스.
Monster Energy, the official energy drink of the Apex Legends Global Series.
Well, a bit of a stumbling block for Team Liquid and Team Empire. Does spice the lobby up a little bit as we head into our penultimate game of our very first lobby here at the Split 2 playoffs. I mean, look, at the moment, Team Liquid and Empire still at the top. No one overtook them. But they only got 1 point each out of that last game, so opens the door a bit.
And yeah, and you know what it makes me wonder, Elfish, is we've just had the change, right? We've just gone from Storm Point into World's Edge. And we certainly saw this throughout Split 2, that, certain teams definitely performing better on one map than the other. They might get the majority of their points in the one half of the series and then struggle losing momentum if that map is the first map that we play for the day. So, look, is that going to be a Team Empire or a Team Liquid today? I'm not so sure. I think these guys are pretty good, and that might have just been a blip on the radar there.
Sure.
But look, maybe something to think about.
But you have to say, really positive signs coming through there for Crazy Raccoon and Element 6. Optic Gaming on our screens right now. They've been a little bit more of a quote-unquote consistent force in that respect. They haven't had a massive, big breakout game so far in this lobby, but they've actually just been able to put points on the board in every single game. Their worst was actually game 1, but it's been trending upwards since then. So, I guess it is probably a good time to be hitting your peak with 2 games to go. You need to be getting some points on the board here, Optic, and you've got time still to do it.
And we know how good they are as fraggers, right? As a team who can take those contests. I mean, Sentinels, where are you? I don't see you. Oh, yeah, they're not at LAN because they tried to contest Optic that many times that they got sent home. So it's really a team, that absolutely frags out. And, yeah, look, sitting in 9th, I expect them to be a bit higher, right? I mean, I predicted them today.
True.
And look, I'm hoping that what you're saying there about the trend upward is only going to continue.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, look, I guess at this point it's probably a good time to touch in with some of the teams that are sitting toward the bottom end of the scoreboard. TSM certainly not one of those, still in the top 5, but I'm really keeping my eyes on the likes of Zen, Phoenix, Scars, GMT, Ascend, Burger, all these teams that are sitting down toward the bottom 5 of the lobby to really have a big game here to get them back in the discussion. Otherwise, it's going to be the next lobby that they're really going to have to start focusing on because it's just not going to happen here. Heading into game number 5, though, on World's Edge, the big question is, are we going to continue to see those contests, Genome? Because there was a couple in our very first game there, and I'm quite interested to see if those will play out again and if they'll play out similarly.
Compositions, we saw them change up a little bit as well, Elfish. I mean, Crazy Raccoon, for instance, here, the double rotators. I like the choice for World's Edge, honestly. It makes it a little bit harder in those final circles sometimes, but look, not last game. Didn't matter how much caustic gas was there around, because, I mean, it takes up an area, the gas grenade, the ultimate of caustic there, but Crazy Raccoons with their presence had about 6 times that in the final circle. They were that good at keeping other teams from rotating out.
Looks like it could be a Lava City finish geyser in there, as well as the eastern edge of Lava Siphon. But OG going to be very, very happy with how that's gone. We were saying, they need to sort of step up in this game. Things have been going relatively okay, but not amazingly. And this might be the game to do it.
Okay, well, we've got 3 teams up in Skyhook right now. Remember, there were some contests at last game. It looks like Fennel this time. They've landed there again, but it looks like they've kind of been forced out by Luminosity Gaming, who are fully taking over launch site there. And then we've got 3 teams. So it was Element 6 who have gone all the way up to Skyhook. I'm trying to think of who was the team that Strike who beat at Thermal Station last round?
Might have been FSV?
47. Oh,
something that started with an F. I think it might have been
Phoenix.
Fascination Colors.
No, it was Phoenix, right?
Phoenix?
I think
I
Phoenix.
knew it was an F team.
And they've gone down to Dome. Okay, so
well, to be honest, that's actually maybe worked out for them with this circle.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, yeah, look, Dome. I mean, we had, who was it? Sinky B that was playing from Apex South. And honestly, it's not one of the better performing POIs you get in World's Edge, but certainly it can be made to work. So Phoenix team, they like their chances having the POI to themselves rather than taking another battle against Storaiku, especially when you go and think about the leaderboard at the moment, and Phoenix is sitting in 19th, Elfish.
Reject coming off the drop with some pretty solid loot. They got them.
I need more heavy ammo. I have 70.
heavy.
Work their way down to the zone relatively quickly. They've got the info as well with the beacon that where that second circle is going to be, and they've actually run into GMT again. One of those teams that has been having a bit of a more difficult day to start things off, and I saw a white armor involved there for GMT, so this doesn't necessarily seem like it's going to be a particularly fair fight, and I wonder if Reject knows it as well. They're looking well stocked, and they really seem like they want to take this fight.
GMT on the other side of this, they're a team that loves to rotate early, and you can kind of afford to do that sometimes with low bar because, you know, you get that position deep in the ring, and then you don't necessarily have to take fights to get the loot boxes. Oh! We see the bracelet come out from Serdell, but it's just not quite quick enough. And now Reject with the armor advantage are definitely going to thirst this kill.
Yeah, a couple of whites and a blue only for GMT. This was odds quite heavily stacked in the favor of Reject from the outset. They even got some initial shots off before GMT knew they were there. And ultimately, you're seeing Reject kind of work their way through this engagement with relative ease. A couple of other players hanging around, having a look, but Rejects have this one on lockdown. They've started to control it pretty comfortably, and they're fairly healthy as well for the moment. Dogma eats a bit of damage. I think Reject now are starting to recognize that there are some third parties looking in this direction, so maybe it would be wise to just back off and not fully commit to this fight.
Happy for now, split in the buildings as well. Looks like they're just trying to get those angles. But nothing really coming to them for now.
Zen's just been eliminated by Sutoraiku, so that must have been down toward thermal station rotations coming through in that area of the map relatively early on in the piece. Teams are going to know that they need to get on the move.
Yeah, some other teams running into each other across the map as well, but the Australian teams actually have just found each other, and here it is, Thoraiku versus Burger across from Thermal Station. Fussy the first one to be lost and thirsted immediately. Waltzy doesn't actually believe in the team this time. The call is made, and he's going to take the Skyward Dive straight out of there.
Yeah, Bullet's probably a dead man on his own there, unfortunately. So for Sutoraiku, I guess they're going to just be hoping that Burger might move on and Waltzy can come back and kind of hoover up those banners and perhaps try to find the res inside of the zone. Of course, it is still going to be zone 1, so time to do that. But it's not going to tick too much. Big points, though, on offer there for Burger as they do pick up a couple. They really were desperate for some. We'll have to see how that continues throughout this game. Team Empire in an engagement already. Thermite nade ticking onto one of their opponents. But Team Empire kind of just looking for a little bit of time to reset here, get some bats off, and then they can really begin this fight in earnest.
Yeah, they're happy to just sit in the multi-level buildings right now. Very rarely, if ever, will the zone end on these. You don't get those heal-offs, but they are often a good place to play from. You know, especially, look, a Caustic team like with Taishin here, you know, you can put those traps next to the zip lines, and it's almost impossible to come up against those. Maybe if you got, you know, you can chuck out a Crypto EMP first or something like that, try and clear the barrels, but otherwise, very tough.
Very tough indeed. IPN going to be looking for the thirst, and he is more than likely going to be able to get it here as well. There's a player ducking in behind. It's Frogs from Phoenix team. They didn't have a great start on World's Edge, and it might continue. Scars, though, have they bitten off more than they can chew? Taishin will be finished. And that's from Crazy Raccoon as well, so they might have just decided to come in and third party this one. Scars eliminated early on in the piece. Phoenix goes down as well, and Crazy Raccoon say thank you very much for the KP and the loot.
It's been a tough day for Phoenix so far. Once again, they're going to drop early and probably not make their way any further up the leaderboard. CR, though, off the back of a win, probably going to be feeling it right now. Taking mid-level in these buildings. Not necessarily... I mean, look, honestly, it might in some ways be better than having that top shelf, right? Because you don't have to deal with the Valk ults coming in. There are some ledges and places you can play around if teams just decide to full send it.
Crazy Raccoon in a good spot at the moment. Fairly comfortable. Lots of good sets of armor. They've got 30 points on the board. They just won their last game. They're feeling confident, I'd say. And of course, this is a building where you can't really coexist with a couple of teams. Normally, you'll have one team on the roof, one team in the middle, one team down the bottom. We've got a replay here of the fight that Reject took. That was against GMT that they did eventually finish off. If you remember, we watched them pick up one of the earlier kills and then, you know, reset slowly. And unfortunately for GMT, it hasn't worked out for them. And so their tough day will continue. But again, like I said, Genome, today is not an elimination day. You know, you can kind of almost consider it a bit of a seeding day. Send teams into the upper bracket, send teams down into the lower bracket tomorrow. It will mean a harder day tomorrow, yes, and a lot to reset off of. But yeah, well, there is still an opportunity tomorrow if today doesn't go well.
With the double elimination bracket start, you kind of just lose a life, right? if you're not in the top half of teams at the end of today, then it gets to the sticky part of our LAN here in Stockholm. So most teams have, the circle has shifted over towards, looks like it's going to be that sort of you know, the egg in between Big Mord and Lava City. Probably going to be ending up somewhere around there, so most teams have realized this, and it's very congested right now. We actually do have a reasonable number of teams sort of sitting outside. I mean, Element 6, they're still up in Climatizer,
well,
by the way.
We sort of saw them playing that edge style last game as well. They were getting a lot of frags right out onto the edge of the map, and they were working their way in quite nicely. Like, obviously, it's a high risk, high reward kind of a playstyle. You're going to have to fight a lot, but they seem to be fighting well at the moment, at least here on World's Edge.
Yeah, look, 100 Thieves trying to get into a fight here. They're on the other side of Sir Del, who actually made it out. Interesting. Okay, so I guess we saw that wipe, but maybe it wasn't a full wipe for GMT there. So they still have a member alive. Looks like potentially making their way all the way back. And, you know, there's a respawn beacon up there. I got to say, I don't like his chances of getting it off when, you know, you've got Verhulster and TSM on one side of the choke and 100 Thieves on the other one. It doesn't fill me with a lot of confidence.
Yeah, certainly. And this game is playing out a little bit more standard than our previous one. There's not as many early engagements, right? At this point in the game, last game, we've probably had like 10 teams left alive. Now we've got 16. Obviously, the buildings are going to be a benefit for that kind of a game. But it means there's just a whole lot less space to really play with for anyone that's trying to rat it out or try to get res or something like that. There's probably going to be a team right next to you. So very, very difficult in a scenario like this one. If you haven't already rotated your way in, if you're not already set up inside one of these buildings, you are pretty much forced to play that edge style.
Yeah, and like we've got more teams going into these later circles, less contests than we had on the first map of World's Edge, and so it's only going to get more and more congested. These later circles are just going to be hectic.
You're indeed correct. We're sort of in the eye of the storm at the moment, aren't we, right? We had a lot of earlier engagements. Well, not a lot. A decent amount. Some jostling over position. And now things have slowed down a little bit as most teams have found their way into the zone or into some degree of relative safety. And they're just trying to lock down their building or their position. And we're not really seeing those committed fights just yet.
Yeah, I feel like Lava City is probably going to be a little bit chill for the next circle or two. You know, if you think back to 100 Thieves, they were holding a choke point that could see some action. TSM actually might have just even heard a little bit of a Valk off in the distance there. They've come down now on top of Big Mord and bypassed that gatekeeping position that 100 Thieves are holding. And look, there's still another couple teams that could get in there, but TSM first, they've got to worry about trying to fight for this position on Big Mord.
Yeah, and we know you want to hear from them, so let's jump into a listen in with TSM and see how they're going.
Can we go back up? Can we go back up?
Yes.
Okay. Go back up. Me. Kill this Valk. I'm pumping it back.
Valk is cracked. Bat him as well.
Oh, no. No. Bro.
Dead now.
We should just went gun room. And that arc was perfectly timed. I don't need train. I don't need train. Oh, go sit in the cart. Sit in the cart. Sit in the cart. Right in front of you.
Okay.
I should just.
Well, Hal might think that one's a little bit unlucky with the Arcstar timing there, but I got to say they were making that rotation kind of late there, Elfish. A lot of teams already taking up position in Big Mord, and look, if you're not the first there, sometimes you're just dead.
Unfortunately, that can be the case, but still TSM not in a bad spot for this lobby. One more game to go, still one more opportunity. Team Liquid takes up residence inside the bottom of the building, which is already occupied, of course, and they're going to start to understand that very, very quickly. EMPs, thermite nades, frag grenades, they're all coming down the elevator shaft, and Team Liquid are going to go into the stairs. They're going to take a fight here as well. It's a Crypto on the other side, full flesh. Nocturnal gets the first one, but he's instantly traded down. It's Send who are on the other side of this engagement. Fun is very low, and Gildersons has no shield left here. Oh no! But maybe still clutchable for Team Liquid as the Mastiff comes out once again. They have a gold pack back if they can get the opportunity to res. There is something in it. Unfortunately, when those kills are finished off, you're not going to be able to do that, and Team Liquid is eliminated. And also, Ascend unfortunately losing a player there as well as Elevate comes in for that third party and reaps the benefits.
I mean, it was almost a sick clutch. They're hiding behind the knockdown shield there almost works out, but unfortunately, with those buildings at this point in the game, there are 3, 4 teams, one for every level almost. Those offices are occupied, and it's very hard to deal. I mean, sure, they chucked out the black hole. I mean, it's interesting with Horizon, her abilities, oftentimes they don't have to be aggressive. They can actually be quite defensive. You can use the gravity lift to block off an entrance, and the black hole in the same way. So they try to do that, but the EMP, too many entrances, 3 or 4 different points of ingress there into that bottom floor, mean they can't take it out themselves.
Palawan from Team Empire really looks like he wants to drop off and try to get a shot in. You can see, obviously, he's the Valk. So if he does drop, he take that shot with the Peacekeeper, fly back on up, get a bit of damage in, put a bit of pressure on. He's constantly looking for openings and opportunities, but hasn't really been able to get one just yet. Zone is starting to creep its way in, though, and we're starting to get into that late game sort of scenario where sooner or later one of these buildings is going to get forced out.
Yeah, so as we watch Element 6 come in here with the Valk ult, it's actually 4-7 who are probably in the best spot, because this ring is going to be shifting towards the east, the full eastern side of Big Maud. I mean, if you look at the mini-map right now, you can see some of the cliffside there around the end. It's going to be hugging that pretty much. So all of those teams, essentially, in Lava City, that's why they're Valk ulting in right now. They've just realized the shift has gone over there, and they're following those other Valk ult teams.
Element 6 just taking up residence underneath Big Maud. I guess not the worst place to be. There's not really a whole lot going on in this area of the map at the moment. There are some angles, but for the most part, teams are on top of or inside of Big Maud, and they're not really going to be a huge threat to Element 6 underneath. So they can play there for a little while.
Okay, so a couple of teams have already been sitting in Big Maud for a while. Reject is one of them. And then the rest of these teams from Lava City, I mean, there are so many that are going to be piling in very soon. Optic Gaming with the Caustic, again, they've been there for a while, and that means there's probably the full 6 barrels up and running for Skittle Cakes, which is going to mean any single point of entry for another team is going to have a little warning bell on it. And Skittle Cakes will be able to let his team know that early.
I can hear some players shouting in the background as we just take a moment of silence. There's a Kraber involved. Onmu is putting that to great use for 100 Thieves. Banner retrieve for Optic Gaming, but I'm not sure that's going to help them out too much. There's a push coming on through a team. They've been having a look. They've been hearing those shots come across. They want the third party, but the Peacekeeper is keeping them at bay. Skittlecakes dodges some bullets on the way out. He's like Nino, but does survive for the moment. I think everyone's going to be aware now of this Kraber on the field, and they're going to be keeping their heads down.
And sometimes you're just the first one who takes that shot, right? Like you don't even hear the, you don't get that sound cue early, and someone like Onmu just puts you down before you even have a chance. There's another Valk now on Big Maud playing with fire.
They might send it here. They're thinking about the phase breach. They're going to go for it. 100 Thieves up onto the roof of Big Maud. What have they got planned? It's a rotation that they needed to make. Zone was at their back. They've gone early. They know they've got some powerful weapons in their arsenal at the moment, but they're not going to need to use them for now. Team Empire is who will switch to, and they are doing a fairly solid job just cleaning house inside of the train station. We'll have to take a quick reset here as the shields start to fall low. Cleve in a bit of trouble, needs the backup from his teammates. Is he going to get it in time? Good shot through from Ganjaman, and Fennel's eliminated, but there's obviously more than one team here, more than 2, and Team Empire, they might have bitten off a bit more than they could chew there, unfortunately, Genome. They did take out Fennel for the most part, but Luminosity are the major winners here as they do pick up both teams in the end.
Well, we're at the train station here, and one of these teams is trying to run away with it, but it's going to be pretty hard when there's a good 5 or 6 teams actually trying to play for the northern side of this, which will just barely clip inside the ring. Onmu, he's trying to be...
Once that bubble goes down, there is no cover at all on top of the train station. And there's a Kraber watching. He's only got 2 shots left in it. But, of course, he can put them to great use. There's an opportunity, but it doesn't land. It kind of gets the heart racing a little bit when you see a Kraber on the field.
He's got one more shot to stop a heart with that, and then he's probably going to have to find one of those death boxes to switch back over. The teams that he's looking at down there, Luminosity, Elevate, we've got and I think there was Crazy Raccoon as well there. But it looks like they've been taken out now, so EMP is coming in. That will eliminate the bubble. You think you've got some safety, and then the Crypto just rips it away from you.
That said, 100 Thieves still looking relatively safe for the moment. Time for them to reset, and you know, even though the EMP lands, I don't think any of these teams right now in Big Lord really want to be taking the fight. They're more focused on what their rotation is going to look like for 7. They seem to be set up very, very nicely, and you know, we've talked at length about the Watson, and in fact, this might be the best case scenario.
Yeah, I mean, they had the crypto, right? They didn't need to be close to the beacon. They can fly that straight through and get that info. So they were there early, and they were there first. Elevate, one of those teams fighting around the train station right now. Oh, okay, gold bag. That means you often think about sticking it when you wouldn't otherwise, just because the reset option is that much stronger.
Unfortunately, they're not going to be able to get it off. The missile swarm just finishes off Nellis as that res was going to come through. So Elevate are going to have to play this one as 2, but it's not going to matter too much. They do run through Luminosity, pick up a bit of loot on their way, but they're going to have to start to move fairly shortly. Zone is pushing in and is doing a lot of damage at this point in the game as well. 100 Thieves, of course, still looking really strong on top of Big Mord, but the issue is now everyone has to move off.
Right now, FSV, 4-7, they are the only team in the circle, Elfish. This is very reminiscent of our last game. Everyone pushing into 4-7.
And you know, maybe it's going to be more difficult to push into 4-7 because if you remember last game, it's a double rotator comp for Crazy Raccoon with the Raze, with the Valk. Here, you've got a Crypto and a Watson to deal with.
That was a double stick!
And it's going to do a ton of damage as well. For 7, they're charging their way forward. Elevate just get absolutely booked. They're out of there. See you later. And that's just going to happen. 100 Thieves also eliminated all those teams coming off of Big Mord. And all of those teams are getting absolutely wrecked right now by 4-7. It's almost like playing a zombies mode. There's teams just chucking themselves at you. Element 6 down now as well. And no one is getting past 4-7. They're playing the role of Gandalf in Lord of the Rings. They're saying, you shall not pass. Reject is down as well. And now 4-7 charging toward their victory.
It's only Optic Gaming, I believe, left alive. 4-7 have had this in the bag for it seems like 5 minutes, but now they have to pull the trigger and finish it off. They do. Another APAC North team comes out on top here in World's Edge.
I am astonished, almost speechless, which is not very good in my job, unfortunately, Genome. But man, what a crazy win for 4-7. And as you said, it played out very similarly to Crazy Raccoon's win in the first game of World's Edge. But I have to say, that was a bit more explosive from them, wasn't it, right? So many teams just trying to send it in their direction. I don't know how many kills they ended up getting there. It was absolutely nuts.
There was a lot of team wipes there. I mean, we saw Team Burger come down from the south. They were just trying to sneak in. That's kind of, you know, their MO. They like to be in those final circles and then pop up out of nowhere, but they get spotted a little bit too early. 4-7 grab those kills. Optic having to try and deal with Team Reject there at the end. That was the last 3 teams left alive, and they did a little too much damage to each other for them to be able to then turn around and try and take the fight there with 4-7, who were just set up as we saw. And you know, I think a lot of people have talked about how, you know, sometimes they don't think Watson can be as effective in the open, right? Versus in buildings where you often think defensive characters like her and Caustic can do their damage. But we see there, you just take so much space and teams can't Valk ult in on top of you.
Well, while we've got the graphic up here, I'm going to reiterate the fact that Team Liquid and Team Empire didn't really get a whole lot out of that game. TSM also only the 2 points. Element 6, you know, they're not on the top end of this scoreboard. So those teams up in the top 4 or 5, with the exception maybe of 100 Thieves, haven't really gotten a whole lot out of that game. And again, the fact that now 4-7 has put 21 onto their points, where they started at 33, they're going to just jump themselves right up, maybe even into the top end, maybe on top. I don't know, Team Liquid get 1 point, so maybe not quite enough for 4-7 to take first place in this lobby, but that is really getting them into the discussion.
Team Empire, only 5. This is just making this lobby closer and closer. We're going to have an epic finish here in Game 6 as this condenses, right? And the other thing we have to notice there, Optic getting a second, picking up a couple of kills there as well. We talked about Optic being on that rise, and it feels like there's only one place to go from second, Elfish. Well, that's number 1.
Hey, Optic Stonks, they might be on the rise. Luckily, you invested early when they were at the bottom, and they're on their way up. So maybe you'll get a big win out of that one. Either way, huge win for 7. Just taking a look at the kills, they did get 9 in the end.
And you notice, right, there's a lot of assists across the board. Even the amount of kills they get to the amount of damage they've done are very, very efficient there. So Sang Jun actually putting out quite a lot, while Justin and Higa says, seems like those guys were just popping in for that last bullet. But either way, you didn't need to do a lot of damage because you had the position, and everyone else was doing it for you.
Yeah, I mean, that was the nature of the beast, really, for 4-7, wasn't it? It was just a good, smart rotation early on in the piece. They set themselves up. They're the perfect team composition to do that. and then there was 2 or 3 quick minutes of explosion, and it's all over, and that's all. That's all that they really had to do. Either way, we've got the leaderboard here on your screens. It's Team Empire that will take first for the lobby, but by the slimmest of margins, and look at how tight it is for the top 3. 2 points the gap between Liquid and 4-7. And of course, there are a bunch of teams that can still sweep the win in the lobby.
And you know what I'm loving about this is that this feels like the LAN scoreboard that I wanted to see, right? I mean, obviously, when you're in your own region, there tends to be a larger skill disparity across the 40 teams here. But you take the best from everywhere, you mash them together, and we're getting tight lobbies. That's exactly what we wanted at LAN.
And what's the best part about it as well is I think you're getting this clash of styles, right? The EMEA style coming through for Team Empire, where they're really changing their comps around a little bit on Storm Point. Then you have the North American style with Team Liquid, and of course we've seen this sort of hard rotate kind of style coming through from the APAC North teams, where they're really getting themselves into a good solid position early on in the piece and just playing it out that way. Different team comps are being successful. It's not as if anyone is really dominating with one composition. We're going to see that for the rest.
We see the crypto there, right?
There's a whole lot going on. Yeah,
that crypto coming in and playing such an important part in, the teams who were near the beacon. They didn't have to do that. They could play from a better spot while still getting the information.
Indeed, indeed. All right, well, there's so many questions we still have to answer. We've only got one more game to do it in for this lobby. We'll take a break first, but we'll be back on the other side. Don't go too far away. One game remains for our first lobby of the day, and it is very tight toward the top. And ultimately, Genome, obviously, it doesn't necessarily matter whether you win the lobby or not, but it is bragging rights, and getting as many points on the board at the end of the day is going to be a big factor. 18 games, that's all the teams have to play with, and if you finish off the first 6 with a really good result, you're in a great spot.
It's splitting into that winners bracket and losers bracket, right, Elfish? So top 20 go to winners, bottom 20 go into losers. So if you're thinking about, on average, how you need to play, you really just need to be in that top 10 of each round. So if you're coming in the top half, that's kind of what's important today.
That is true. That is true. Something to consider, of course, as well, is these battles for drop spots and that sort of shenanigans that are going on at the moment as well. Something that can have a longer lasting effect over the course of a tournament as a whole. So you're kind of laying the groundwork. Like, you've done that a little bit to an extent in scrims, but this is the real deal now, right? These are the official matches, and this is where it really does end up mattering who's doing what, where as well specifically. So getting off to a good start, making sure you lock down your drop location, and setting yourself up with great momentum for the rest of the tournament is imperative.
And as we talked about just before the break, it's been a tight lobby, right? I mean, you know, if we're looking throughout, like, let's take, you know, Split 1 or Split 2 as an example, across a series of 6 games, often you're getting teams winning with like 70, 80, 90, sometimes a big game you might get 100 points or more to finish off with. That can't happen here. No. We are going into game 5, and the teams at the top have barely cracked 50.
Yeah, I mean, Team Liquid's at 54, Empire's at 52, so it sort of ties into what you're saying for 745.
It also means that there's so many teams that could still come out on top here because the gap is so small. I mean, we've already seen, what was that first game today? The 17 kill one where they had, like, was it 29 points or something like that?
Yeah, 17 kill win. That was the second game for Team Liquid.
Right, exactly. That's 29 points in a game. So if you take that as the barometer of this, you know, teams down to all the way down to like Elevate and 11th or something could still come out with a win.
Maybe, but it's going to have to be a massive final game here, and that's of course what it will be as we kick off the last game of this lobby. Now, don't get too perturbed when you hear me say last game. We do still have another 12 after this throughout the rest of today. It's going to be a massive day of Apex Legends, so do stick around. But of course, make sure you watch this game out as well before you do go and, you know, have a break, get some food, do what you need to do, and start thinking about the second lobby. Let's see what 4-7 can do. They've just come off a massive win, something that they didn't necessarily need per se, but they obviously really benefit from, and it kind of gets them into the discussion for potentially winning this lobby if they can replicate that here in the final game.
Well, replicate being the key word. They drop at Survey Camp. They do have one of those at their disposal. I mean, it's not known as one of the best drop spots, Elfish. Usually, a team who is landing in Survey Camp is kind of pretty far down the pecking order. But 4-7, they're working against that adversity.
Just got eliminated pretty quickly by Fennel. So I guess their run is ended, unfortunately, for this lobby. They were in 12th coming in. But the fact that Fennel has actually picked up 3 points off of that is probably going to drop them down into 13th because Fennel was the team right behind them. And that could continue to sort of fall for Luminosity as there's a few teams quite close by to them as well.
So we've got a different circle here. It looks like it could be pulling towards Harvester. Looking at that, I'd say there's a lesser chance that it goes towards that sort of northern thermal station side, considering the mountains are in the middle there. But we'll have to wait and see it at zone 3 or 4. You know, looking up the top here, I'm still interested by the fact that we've got 3 teams in Skyhook, right? I mean, very often you'll have the team who's in the west of Skyhook. They also get trials. But this time, Team Liquid are just having to run off the trials loot and then maybe coming down the back of Lava Fissure. I'm not sure. I mean, considering how fast you can see Burger already rotating down through there, they're probably not looting that sort of like the little house that I think Team Liquid would probably come through and grab as well. But I mean, it's not amazing. I mean, sure, you kind of guaranteed some good stuff there at trials. Maybe you get the gold armor, maybe even 2 sometimes. But you don't have a lot of options.
True. There's definitely a little bit of that going on, but hey, I mean, you can only make do with what you've got, and that's why I continue to bring up these drop locations where it is so important to kind of lock down your spot, because if you place your mark right now and say, like, we are the Skyhook team, or we are the Fragment East team, or the Fragment West team, or whatever it may be, as soon as you get into the next lobby where another team might look to contest you, and then they take a look back at this VOD and say, oh, well, they actually really wrecked their opponents on the contest, maybe they think twice about doing that, and that can have a longer lasting effect on the rest of the competition as well. We'll hold that thought for the moment, though, because GMT once again have gotten themselves into an early engagement. This time they're a little bit better set up, and it's actually against Sutaraiku, who have been having some good games, been having some bad games. They've had to rely on a big clutch coming through from Waltzy in our first game of World's Edge to get them out of trouble, but they are getting the better of GMT at the moment. 2 players cracked, so Dell out of the picture really fast with that bracelet, but what a crack, what a beam. And Waltzy is going to be eliminated pretty early on in the piece. Let's have a listen in here and see how GMT are feeling.
Fuck, man. I'm out of cells now.
Height looks free. Careful above us. Height looks free above us. There's a team up here. Keep rotating. We're going all the way back. I'm waiting for my key.
I'm completely out of meds. On the trenches.
Okay. I'm going here. Let's just get a reset and chill.
Yeah, they. Holy fuck, man.
I have 3 ultic cells on me. 1-4.
I'm 0-0. Want 2 cells in here, clutch.
I'm gonna use level ult just to fucking use it. Not here, dude. There's nothing.
There's nades. Don't take nades. Don't take nades. Anything but nades.
Bat cells. Anyone wants my Devo?
Nah, I need meds, bro. I'm 0-2.
I would like your wingman there. Yeah.
A bit of a discussion around the Loba ult there. To be fair, you know, it's going to be a pretty solid choice in this kind of a circle when you've rotated so early.
Yep, we said that works out for them. It doesn't really seem like it's been working out for them today. Elfish, I mean, twice they've been the first team to be eliminated in this lobby. You know, sitting at, I think it's, 6 points only so far today. So GMT not having a good one of it. But as we said, look, there's another 2 rounds that they get to play today. And look, there's still some points available here in Game 6.
Yeah, 2 teams eliminated. I didn't catch who that second team was. I'm assuming maybe it was Sutaraiku because it looked like they did end up getting third-partied by Crazy Raccoon. But, well, that's for the moment. And see how things are going.
Well, look, we called it a bit of a harvester circle, right? And you can definitely see some teams agreeing with us on that point. Scars, Reject, Zen, heaps of them in there.
Yeah, I think we're going to get a little bit of assistance in that department. Teams remaining, and this will be the big question mark when we go over to the next one. Who is still in the competition? Who were those 2 teams that got knocked? It was actually Elevate that has been eliminated. So they will not be improving upon their result either, unfortunately. They did come in 11th place overall, and I'd say that might be where they end up, or perhaps they do get overtaken, drop down into 12th or 13th or something like that. But at the end of the day, it doesn't necessarily matter too much exactly where you're placing. What really matters is how many points you're getting on the board. So you're talking about GMT with only 6. That's going to really have a follow-on effect for the rest of the day. We just total all the points these teams get. You can almost think about it as an 18-game series where you're just playing against different lobbies. And if you get 6 out of 6 games, that's just not enough.
Yeah, of course. You're right, because you're playing against everyone, right? We've got the 4 groups here. At this Group A, they're going to be playing against B, C, D. They're going to have a chance to prove their worth against everyone, against all the other teams that might contest them, the other teams that might be playing different compositions. We get to see all those combinations and permutations throughout the day. I mean, for GMT, though, what worries me is that they're not necessarily like a pop-off team, right? If you're someone who plays that hard zone, you don't necessarily get the chance to just like rack up kills every single game. And because we're doing this cumulative point system here, you know, that means they're going to be wanting to get points after points, and every KP matters. And if they're not getting those massive games and starting behind like they are here in round 1, it can be hard to make that ground up.
Certainly can. I mean, Team Burger, they've been having a bit of a wishy-washy start as well. 17 points on the board at the moment. One of the teams through from the APAC South region. And, I mean, I think they're going to probably want to be getting a little more than that, right? They would have had higher expectations than where they're sitting at the moment. Definitely an opportunity still, of course, with 12 games after this one to go.
Well, Caustic's meant to be, you know, on World's Edge. That's where it's meant to come alive. So, yeah, not an amazing start to the day, but with the gas grenade here ready to go, there's a small space, and they might find their way in this fight.
Well, they're certainly looking to at the moment, aren't they? They've taken control of the roof of the building, but it seemed like Pricey wanted to maybe take a bit of a battle there, but inevitably the call has been made that this might not be the smartest of contests just yet. It is going to keep GMT a little bit concerned, but in the end, Burger, well, they recognize Team Liquid is coming in from the high ground, and they have decided to just absolutely try and book it. No, might not have done it quick enough, but that's some good shots coming through from Pricey, and that will just, you know, give Team Liquid a pause for thought, where they're going to have to reset, get a bat off, and they think, okay, this isn't the 3 points that we thought that it was.
The high ground vantage point there from Team Liquid really kind of rough because Burger were pulling out. They thought they could easily disengage from GMT, but throw a spanner into the mix. It's Team Liquid, one of those top performing teams in our first series here today, trying to deal with their Antipodean counterparts.
It looks like in the end of the day, it's not really going to result in a whole lot. Team Burger get out of there okay. GMT seems to be comfortable at the moment, and of course you do have Team Liquid as well in this vicinity. Still not, you know, exactly sure where this zone is going to end up either for a lot of these teams, right? This is a bit of an interesting one, right? It could pull out down toward thermal station, it could go back up in towards staging. There's a lot of areas that it can still move to. So a lot of playable areas for the moment. 18 teams, I should say, still alive as well. So it feels like the longer we've gone through this lobby here on World's Edge, the more the teams have figured it out themselves and kind of recognize, okay, we can't take a fight here or there, we're going to get third-partied. And now we're starting to see a bit more semblance of normalcy from the lobby.
Yeah, it's slowing down a bit, is what you're saying there, right? I mean, we're seeing more teams into those later circles. I mean, look, I'm still trying to figure out Team Empire at this point, right? I mean, the composition changes throughout the day were interesting. Now they're going for that combo that it kind of feels like Apex, you know, that original roster was kind of made for, right? Bangalore and Bloodhound, that idea of putting down the smokes and then scanning through them to give you that sort of one-way vision. And it's a team that, even though they've done amazingly well in EU, I feel like I haven't heard as much about them. They kind of keep it a bit low-key.
Fair enough. Some teams tend to be like that. They don't have those massive pop-off games or such. They're just more of a consistent force, and that's definitely a valid way of playing the game out. GMT are going to try and make a rotate with the skyward dive here, and they're going to go into thermal station, which means they're going to have to come out of thermal station as well. Not going to be easy. We'll turn our attention toward Fennel and Optic Gaming, who are going head-to-head. There was a defensive bombardment invested. Not sure which side that one did end up coming from, but Chacobo is taking the opportunity to just reset himself, get that med kit off, back to full strength. And it might be a situation, a world where these things can just coexist in this compound.
Well, they want to, Elfish, because we've actually got a sneak peek of that circle. We were saying how there was maybe a lesser chance to pull down towards thermal station, but nevertheless, that is what has happened. So a team like Optic, with the caustic set up in here in those train station buildings, are going to be incredibly happy about that, assuming they can stay there, they can reset and get the chance to just get themselves back up to full health when you've got people like Fennel here and Pinota on the crypto just coming through and deleting your shields constantly.
Honestly, it kind of looks like Fennel want this fight. Like, they're the ones pushing forward. They're the ones trying to contest the building that Optic Gaming are holding, but they do need to be careful that if they get involved in an engagement, it doesn't last for too long. Because the zone's starting to shift closer and closer, you're already seeing third-party shots coming in there. Little tickles here and there at the moment. That's not a huge factor, but it may end up being a concerning situation in a little bit. Either way, we'll move away from that one and take a look at GMT Esports. Would love to hear from them again, so let's jump into another listen-in.
It's pulling thermal, I think. A lot of teams are rotating thermal right now. Another team landed full top middle.
We're in a great spot. We got a lot of time to work from this spot.
It doesn't look like a thermal pull, then it's gonna end here if anything, but it's very unlikely. Yeah, yeah, wow.
That's huge for us. We can
team in this building, keep that in mind. We're gonna play this fence at some point, okay? Clear our backs at all times. We're probably gonna play on this side instead, okay? Matey, you're gonna play on our back at all times, okay? Now we're chilling. Del, you're gonna play over here. What's your weapon style?
I can only watch the side though.
Del, you play on this rock and look for kills. I'm holding our backs over here, okay?
Yep.
I can't really hold it over there. There's a team down here.
Yeah, don't shoot the team on top middle, because they can really fuck us.
And charge off from the house. In whiffed.
I'm gonna try to just place a low ult and see if
they did fight on the house, so you should be able to
snag something. Maybe there's something, yeah. The drop is here.
No one's watching west side now. No one's watching west side.
I'm taking the syringes, fuck it, I guess.
Okay, well, Nasky seemed to agree with me there that it was an unusual circle pull, or at least one that many of these teams, I mean, Nasky, fantastic at sort of calling those circles very often, would expect, and that means the teams who are already set up there, Optic, now GMT on the southern edge of this, who are going to have to move up eventually, in a good spot for now. We've also got Crazy Raccoons playing a bit of gatekeeping, but then as we move back over to Harvester, where a lot of those teams initially thought it was going to be, we're going to have some trouble.
We've had some pretty serious ring pulls actually on
Yeah,
World
we
Edge.
have,
Every
haven't we?
single round it feels like it's just ruined half the lobby with the ring pull. Empire, by the way, I've just gotten a knock onto Yuka.
It's like someone's on the back end of this and they're like, oh, I've got a spicy ring, and they're just kind of, you know, deliberately placing it where the players won't expect, just to mess with them.
Making it fun for us viewers. Team Empire, they did, I mentioned, get that knock, but it doesn't look like they're going to be able to follow up on it. They've got a bit of info as to where it was. They did get the Bloodhound scan off, but you know, there is a lot of teams right now around Harvester, so they don't want to try to get into an aggressive position and do anything that would kind of compromise their own game, even if they would be able to knock out an opponent.
This team's still kind of thinking about where they're going to play next. I mean, I think at this point you probably would have to expect that with this knowledge, it's going to keep going down south and west. And then teams like Fennel getting that information there with the crypto drone. Old mate Pinota just playing his Game Boy in the corner.
As you do. TSM under the pump at the moment. Al on the floor. Reps finished off. It's Verhulst once again that is going to have to try and clutch this one out. And maybe it's doable. Some flesh cracks there. Unfortunately, not enough. And TSM will be eliminated in 18th for the final game of this lobby at the hands of Team Liquid, no less. Element 6, another one of the teams contesting for the top end of the scoreboard, are unfortunately suffering at the hands of Fennel. We knew this was going to be a fight that could eventually break out, and ultimately it hasn't gone the way of Element 6 at all. Max is going to, again, be the solo, try to clutch it out, keep it alive for his squad, but how long can that realistically last?
18 teams, Zone 4, this is exactly what you expect. It has to start shrinking now, and Element 6's chances of taking this game out have just shrunk to roughly 0. Fennel constantly putting in damage here through the bottom of that stairs, but all of a sudden there's another team in the building with him, and it looks like Optic has taken this chance to come through with the caustic and try and finish them off. Some nice wingman shots from Fennel, maybe making this go the other way. Shakobo with the devotion, doesn't even need the turbocharger there to pump that damage in.
4-7 just gets eliminated. I can't honestly blame Optic Gaming for coming in and third party in this one. Fennel have been so annoying for Optic Gaming. They've been peeking around, they've been flying EMPs at them, they've been shooting them through windows, throwing grenades at them, and finally now is the time where Optic have said, look, we've had enough. Like, you've annoyed us all game long. We're going to get rid of you. And it's now just down to one Fennel player. So really smart moves from Optic Gaming. They get some good points on the board off of that one. They haven't actually finished Fennel off just yet, but they have done enough to basically mean that they are now the ones in full control of that area of the map.
So this is the very south of our ring currently, Elfish. You've got Scars as well as Phoenix. You can see Phoenix playing underneath. Another team, again, kind of down the bottom, 6 points, roughly where GMT was sitting as well. GMT, of course, have moved up into a slightly better position. And then Optic also making some moves to try and make sure that they have the best spot going into round 5.
Yeah, they look like they might be a team that could even win from here. So now it's probably a prudent time to hear from Optic Gaming and see what they have to say about it.
Came across.
Remember, there's like a rat on us somewhere. I don't know. He's not in the closet. Is he like up top?
No, he's not. I'm gonna check up top. No, he's not on
Behind
the
you, Skittles, careful. They got
flying
oof,
on us.
They got oof.
Flying on the other building, I think.
Did they get
on me. They're right here.
I'm watching. Just pre-shoot traps if you ever need to.
They're here.
Good.
They're on the outside the door right here. They're bubbled right here.
I have to reach
There's
out my
there's
door.
like a solo Valk
On me.
I got you. Ask for me. I hit her for 130.
You gotta watch that. I'm Phoenixing.
They shot all my traps out.
I knocked a Valk and I hit Ash for 130.
I'm gonna peek 3 seconds.
Watch your back. They're in the left corner, close left corner. Careful of the stairs.
I'm a bubble on him.
There's. No. They're gonna shoot us from up top.
Just stairs.
Get the stairs. I'm going back in.
Do not
There's Bangalore smoke on our back door. We have no traps on the front door.
Any ultic cells?
Yeah, one. I got the kill here. Nice, Nox. You're so fucking good. No, I cracked the bank.
He's on this side.
Yep,
I can
I'm
kill
going.
him.
I'm holding this side. He's close. I got him.
I'm gonna shield swap on this.
I'm batting. Does he have heavy ammo?
I'm going for Valk's loot.
Okay, I'm good on ammo now.
Right, knocked with the car there, kind of making it look like a vault. The amount of damage he was pumping out of that makes it like is that a care package weapon in his hands?
He just runs around the corner. There's two players sitting and ratting just inside of the crevasse.
And I mean, a move
around.
like that is actually why I was wondering why they committed that bubble. I mean, sure, it netted them one kill, but we were kind of talking about, I was saying, oh, that was a little bit unsafe. If someone just swings through one of those other doors, they might need that defensive tool. It only comes up once every 40 seconds.
I did just see them pick up an ultic cell, so maybe they've got that in the back pocket. Either way, Phoenix team are trying to hold down the fort. They desperately need some points out of this one. They're having a much better game here in Game 3 of World's Edge. Top 8 for them. They'll need to get some kills on the board as well to really just elevate that scorecard as much as they possibly can. You can see Optic Gaming are doing a fantastic job in that department. 5 KP already for them. Team Liquid also looking pretty good in this one, and maybe they're going to be the team that inevitably does walk away with the win here in the first lobby of the day.
Could be them, Elfish. Lots of other teams still left in this though. 8. 7 now left alive. It's 100 Thieves to go down, and Burger are starting to make their move there. Pricey with the wingman from long range will get a tap onto Fun FPS. Their compatriots in Storaiku go down now, however, and Burger just have to deal with Team Liquid on their side, who are kind of sandwiched between a couple.
Yeah, between a rock and a hard place as well, because that zone is pushing them in. They don't really have anywhere to go. Team Liquid are down to just the one. Phoenix team losing a player as well, as there's a bunch of players jumping into their bubble. They weren't expecting that from Optic Gaming. It hasn't gone well for either side, of course, but Phoenix team has been eliminated in the 5th place. Optic just desperately trying to find these resets. Unable to do so at the moment. Reject above Burger. GMT having a much better result as well. They're into the top 4.
Considering the 4 squads to the left alive here, though, you've got Reject on 52 points. Optic were one of the only other teams here who were really sitting at the top of the leaderboard. And look, a big performance here from those two could leapfrog them all the way to the top here and take out this round 1.
You're certainly right, but we're also looking for Burger and GMT to maybe play spoiler. Neither of those teams will be able to top the lobby, but they both really need points as well. We've said they've had their struggles so far, and they need to be getting those points right here, right now, because this is the last opportunity for the lobby. Duplex was finished off there by Dell in the end, and Optic Gaming inevitably will fall. Ooh. I like that move from GMT now, though, by the way, because that cleared out their entire side of the map, and Team Burger and Reject, as you can see, are really kind of jostling for position on the other side.
Yeah, but because this circle has such a big shift in the high ground towards the top of it, it just feels like Reject are going to be indomitable from up here. GMT, they've played this game well. Finally, we're seeing what we expected of them. But from the low ground here, it's going to be a long way to the top.
Surely that's going to force the bubble out from Team Burger. They're keeping their heads down, but yes, I do see the bub invested early on in the piece, and that's pretty bad news, because now the EMP starts to come across. This is where Reject is really going to start to build themselves into this game. Jaro is knocked down by Mady, so you've got GMT and Burger taking a fight against one another. In fact, GMT may be fighting a battle on both sides as they're getting knocks on Burger and Reject, and it's Burger out in 3rd. Now it's GMT who might actually walk away with the win. Somehow they've been able to do enough, and GMT from an awful start in this lobby have walked away with the win at the end of the day. The 11th hour, they finally get it going, and GMT, that must be such a relief, because it has really been tough going, I must say, and it's great to see some smiles coming out for them, because I did feel a little bit bad for them, obviously, GNM having to play with a sub. It's never going to be easy, but they pulled the win off, and there you go.
That's true. Look, there's a couple floating around here, but it doesn't matter. You're on the stage. You just have to do what you can. And finally here in Game 6, GMT have showed up. I mean, I honestly am struggling to believe they won that endgame, right? I mean, Team Reject, they had the high ground. It felt like the other two teams were probably going to be funneling into each other. I think they even had like the last use of the bubble there, and they had the crypto, which can dictate how the other teams use their bubble. And despite all of those things, all of that adversity, GMT still managed to come out ahead.
Yeah, I think they kind of just kept their heads out of that fight for as long as they needed to, right? They were sort of, I felt the third party getting involved. It was kind of Reject and Burger, and then GMT just sitting on the side, getting some shots across, and inevitably they managed to get a knock onto each team, which give them such a massive advantage once they bring it into the two remaining teams. So 20 points on the board for GMT out of that last game. Reject having a really good final result there as well. And then it starts to fall off a little bit, right? You've got 20 points and then 17 points and then like 9 and 12. So it doesn't feel as beneficial for Burger and Optic and Phoenix and Liquid, etc. But, you know, maybe, at least in the case of Team Liquid, they might have done enough to still top the lobby.
I'm going to be really excited to see when we get that final scoreboard coming up. Other teams that we think about who were kind of in contention, maybe TSM at some point was, but with 0 points there in Game 6, you kind of think that that's no longer an option for 7 off the back of some inspiring performances by them. Unfortunately, 1 point in this final game. So, all right. Sure, we're going to get those final scores soon to see who actually takes out the round. Elfish, this is going to be a very exciting reveal.
Yeah, I mean, look, again, as we've reiterated multiple times, it doesn't necessarily matter whether you win this lobby or not. There's no like ultimate prize in that respect. It's about getting as many points as you possibly can over the 18 games today. But I think there is still, to a degree, a bit of an element of bragging, right?
I was just about to
throw
say
the gauntlet
that.
down at some of the lads and say, hey, we won this lobby. We're the top dogs at the moment. What are you going to do about it? GMT, well, they walk away the top dogs in that final game. Really nice, impressive damage numbers coming out from them as well. If you remember, they were fighting for the majority of that game, so it makes sense.
Yeah, they had to play for a lot of spots, right? You know, they were all the way south below the train station, and the circle just kept shifting away from them. And every time it did, there was something they had to fight for. But you see that they make that work just enough times to come away with the win in our Game 6.
It was interesting that we got to hear them, you know, in the listening really early on in the piece, where they were saying, okay, it's very unlikely to be a thermal station circle. We're kind of cooked. And then they are so positively surprised when the circle shifts down to the south, and they say, oh, you know what, we can actually play here. And then they go on to win the game.
Yeah, because they didn't even have the info, right? They were literally just looking at a lot of the other Valk teams coming in and being like, oh, we're seeing a lot of teams rotating here, like maybe it's our day, and it was.
It certainly was. Obviously, as a whole, not their day, but you know, nice to get some points on the end of it. The tail end, at least, it's some good points on the board, and that's something that they're going to be quite happy with going into the second lobby. Either way, that's us done and dusted for World's Edge and for Lobby 1, and now I want to hear from our panel. So let's jump back over to the desk and see what they have to say about it.
Thanks, gents. Appreciate your time. Certainly appreciate you bringing the chaotic action to us here for games 4 through 6. Okay, Xenox, I'm coming to you first, my friend, because if we want to talk about highlights from games 4 and 5, this is where APEC North was showing their teeth.
Yeah, certainly. I think we kind of expected going over to World's Edge that maybe the meta would suit them a little bit more. In some ways, yes. In other ways, we did see some standouts, especially some fighting outside of buildings, which also benefit them as well. It was a little slow going, especially probably in match 4. I think the transition from Storm Point over to World's Edge, quite prominent that, yeah, things did slow down. While we did have a couple of early fights in match 4, it then really did come to a bit of a stall. We saw a lot more of the Caustic and the Gibraltar, of course. We expected that. And ultimately, you know, it was Crazy Raccoon who took that first game, and I'm just sitting in the green room, and I am smiling.
He's got a big, trust me, we all saw he's got a big smile on his face, certainly. And Bardolph, match 4, as Xenox mentioned, we started a little bit in you know, a little bit more measured, I would say. But going into match 5, things really started to unleash.
Yeah, certainly so. And again, the Trash Panda's coming out on top here in this game, so very nice work. They were super hype about that as well, so there was a nice confidence boost, because I would imagine some of these teams will feel like underdogs coming into well-established metas in EMEA and North America, respectively. But we saw some nice bunker busting here in match number 5. A lot of crypto ults actually just coming and griefing other teams as well. I saw many situations where there were one crypto ult on top of another one, which if you're the guys in that building, then you can't be happy. But 4-7 will certainly be happy with what happened in this 5th match, as they were able to get a W as well.
Absolutely. And Xenox, I mean, we take a look at these match 5 results. You talk about, I see, look at 4-7 here coming out on top, and I also see Oh, Watson.
Fences!
Yes, Fences win the game in the end. But just quickly as well there for Game 5, Onmu on the Kraber. So impactful and just a big power play in the middle of that game. But yeah, back-to-back wins for APAC North, Game 4, Game 5. And also Reject as well in that game, ended up picking up a lot of kills. So they really a good start. And then heading over to Game 6, we actually saw maybe some teams that have been a little slow going finally pick up the pace. None more than GMT and a little bit from Burger as well.
Absolutely. Bardolph, GMT had to win this one. They had to come out swinging. And they decided to change up their team comp.
Yeah, they brought out the Loba for that last game. Maybe a desperation play with how things have been going for them. And hey, they were able to take the W. But as some teams rise, some teams fall. And TSM, a team that's kind of run out of steam in the second half of these 6 games. But also, Empire completely fell off. I'm calling them out because where's the Maggie? Where's the Caustic? You know, they stuck with the Bangalore for World's Edge and didn't really get the results they were looking for.
They did not, unfortunately. And I will say, as someone who's very excited for a non-traditional comp, I was excited to see your team Empire really coming out and swinging, but I'm with you on that one. Unfortunately, that's not something. I will say also, you know, reminding ourselves that Team Liquid also filled in a Horizon, which I appreciate seeing a nice little change in pace as well, Bardolph. Yeah,
we saw some nice launches in those games of Horizons, looking to just like get the whole team up and just land on top of another team. I think TSM in one of the much earlier games were a victim of a play like that. So we've got so many different flavors that we're seeing, and that's just in these first 2 groups. Let's not forget there are 2 other groups playing as well.
Very good point. Well, let's take a look at what these 2 groups had to say with our leaderboard. Remember, math doesn't lie, gang. And boy, does it lie down, however, for Team Liquid. That is a hearty 4-point lead there, Xenox.
Yeah. Well, can I also just say, though, when we were 3 games through, it was the top 2 running away with it. And now at the conclusion of 6 games, you can actually see how close it ended up finalizing. Liquid and Empire started so strong. Yes, did they slow down a little bit on World's Edge, but ultimately able to pull through and get that top spot. It's a really good start to the day. Remembering, of course, that, yes, it's nice to be winning and leading at this point, but it's not everything. There's still 12 more matches.
Absolutely right. And Bardolph, one of the things I continually have to remind ourselves as we take a look at our second page, Ingrid's Group A versus B, it's all about the points. It's all about the points. You can get that W, that's great, and don't get me wrong, kill placement and points is great, but throughout today, it is all about, did I mention it was all about the points?
I think you might have, Kate.
Fair.
And GMT, we can see they've moved up 6 places in that last game. They were really lacking before that result came through for them. And they've given themselves a reasonable average in the middle group for the time being. You know, there's a good spread of the jam towards the top, but things are looking kind of dry piece of bread with no water near the bottom there, and they're going to have to really put some work in a lot of these teams. I think if you don't have, say, 25 points here, or, you know, 10 or just 1 point away from that, so 24, let's say, then I think you might be in quite a pickle at the moment.
Quite a pickle, of course. And again, we are 6 games in, everybody. We are going to be seeing these teams go 18 today. It seems like a grind, but guess what? These teams are so used to this, and they have certainly found their way in and out of our winning lobbies, and we'll find out how that works a little bit later. But we also have a secondary stream, gang, and that is something that I got to give a huge props to Nicewig. Twitch.tv/Nicewig. That is on his channel. And as we mentioned in our main stream here, this is A versus B, but we've got C versus D. We are all Apex all the time today, because it's just math, gang. It's in order to keep all of these matches going, we have to have that secondary stream. And guess what?
Yes.
This is what I'm going to go over to you right now, Zedox, because there's nothing you can't say there.
Yeah, look, so excited. AD Raccoon, you know, Karen Poo coming in and filling that slot. Sally, who's such an amazing player. And look, to be able to get top spot, and especially off the back of what Alliance actually did earlier, they had a 19-kill win. So what did AD Raccoon do? Well, they got a 14-kill win in the very final game to take that top spot back away from Alliance. But honestly, I think you can see a little bit of a difference between the 2 lobbies, right? Maybe a little more top-heavy here, obviously, for Group C and Group D, but really good to see APAC North on top.
Absolutely. Bardolph, I'm looking at, listen, I hate to say it this way, but I'm looking at G2 right now.
Yeah, G2 did not have the greatest time. If you actually look at the top 2 teams there, won 4 of the 6 games. The top 4 teams won the 6 games. So it is very top-heavy indeed. In terms of the placement as well, because of course you can get a nice result in terms of consistency without winning, but getting the kills and so on, but G2 definitely lacking. A team that maybe one of the most confident teams that we have here, definitely going to be disappointed with their performance so far.
100%. We love you guys, but we know you can do better. we know you can do better. But either way, I will say this. One team that has definitely done great today is Team Liquid. Our own Evan is coming at you with Nocturnal from that team. Evan, talk to me.
What is up, K-Desk, everybody out there? It's Rain Day and your boy, Nocturnal. How we doing today, man? You guys took the top of the group. I mean, what a performance to start it off.
I'm feeling great. Confidence is all-time high, and we're ready to carry through.
We've been talking a little bit behind the scenes before we got this interview going. The vibes seem to be very, very strong within you. You're happy, you're laughing. The team communication and symmetry seems to be on point. Are you guys just feeling like you're connected in this tournament specifically? It's LAN. It's, you know, playing together for the first time.
Honestly, I'm more nervous about this interview than playing the game. So, like,
well, I appreciate that, man. I appreciate that. I did get dressed up for this. But I really do. Yeah, exactly. He said he'd be pantless for this interview if he could. I think that just kind of denotes where we've been over the course of it. 957 days, I think, to get to this moment. Obviously, you have been playing so much, and you guys have been crafting so much of how you wanted to approach this tournament. But from your words and with Hotsick and what you guys have put together, what's the goal here in Sweden as far as how you're anticipating playing?
we're here to just make everyone fear us. Yeah. There's no stopping. We're gonna run it away with it. There's no stopping us.
And is that something that obviously having the highest point total for a single game today in the groups that we watched on stage, 29 points, that you felt was just coming, or did that cement it for you? Like, okay, we're here, we're ready to do it.
Honestly, we had 2 or 3 teams just walk into our building, and we 3v3 them, killed all of them, and then Guild had an amazing clutch up. And after that, it was just Kraber. You know, we love the Kraber. And then after that, we just ran away with it. Fun did an amazing call to hide behind the tree, let everyone fight on edge, and we just walked in through there, played it super slow, and took it away.
We've had, you know, I want to ask you a little bit about your teammates as well. Gilderson's a guy that has been so talked about, keeps the joy up. You know, how is it like playing with him? What's the impact he has on your team and your success?
He's like a newborn puppy. He's super energetic. He's fun to watch, and God, does he dish out damage. He is insane. He's a breath of fresh air, honestly. He's instilled my confidence. I have a team that I can trust, and we're going to take it away.
It just feels like you guys are firing on all cylinders. I'll talk to you one more about someone who used to work on this broadcast with us, Mr. Hotsick as well. As a coach, some teams more coach-focused, some teams aren't. I know he plays a big part in how you guys come together, figure out what you're going to do. Speak a little bit about the coaching dynamic and how that helps you guys.
Well, first off, he's a headache. You know, respect him, but that joke's got to go. But honestly, he keeps us in check. He is the backbone of our team mentally. He keeps us when we're having a bad day. He's make sure we're okay, make sure, you know, if we need anything, we will do it. He'll do anything for us. And then he's not really, like, honestly, he's moving away from coach, just like a caretaker. We've already refined our gameplay. He is here to just make sure we are on our 100% every single day. We're locked in.
Dang, confident words and a really, I think, natural adjustment for somebody who feels like family more so than just a team member there at this point. Finally, we're 6 games in. We've got 12 more to go. How are you feeling about the journey that's ahead of you? You guys pacing yourselves? Are you saying everything all out every game?
Just gotta take it easy, honestly. Just let things happen, and we don't have to go all out. But top 10 is the same as first place. So, but first place does feel really damn good.
Well, you guys are certainly on your way there, taking first place after 6. This is Brandon Nocturnal. We'll send it back to the desk. You guys finish this off.
Oh man, Gildersleeve is a newborn puppy. That's what that meme just writes itself. Either way, thank you very much, Nocturnal. Thank you.
Does that mean he poops everywhere?
That's for them to know and us to not find out. Dear goodness, I hope not. But an interesting strategy, an interesting thought there, Bardoff, in terms of not going and saying we're gonna. I mean, obviously they're very confident, but you know, let things unfold. What an interesting thought to come into.
Absolutely. Sometimes you need to have trigger discipline, just like we saw with 100 Thieves and that Kraber with somebody action, because they want to get it down in a position where they can get a kill afterwards. And as they were talking about in the interview, Team Liquid being behind a tree and someone and waiting for the right time to strike, not going to overextend and take unnecessary risk, because they're playing for the long game, not the short-term result of, hey, we've got to kill you know. So they're definitely thinking about the long game, and you have to when you come into the first LAN in 900+ days.
Absolutely. Well, let's take a look at what the math says about all of this. We are, of course, in our group stages. This is day number 1. Green means good, Xenox. Green means good. And, of course, we've only played our first round. We got 2 more rounds, 6 matches each, 12 more games to go. But what does this first page tell you?
Well, firstly, it tells me APAC North is clearly the best region, right? Does number 1 mean good? Yeah, it does. But look, it's early days, right? It's 6 games. So much can change within the next 6, and then, of course, the final 6. So we've got 12 games to go. We're not even halfway through. So you don't want to celebrate too early, and I think, you know, at the end of the day, you do want to be in this position by now. It means obviously things have started well, but for the teams that are probably, you know, in the next 20 slots, well, they're going to be fighting hard in the next 6 games. They know that they need to play that little bit better. So, you know, there's a bit of a target on the back of these teams now.
Well, I will say here, Bardov, the Dare to be Great scenario is absolutely exactly what Xenox said in this second page. And I will also say this, you know, as we talked about, that first page can't sleep on anything because we've got 12 more games to go.
Yeah, there's certainly improvement to be done here. We're looking at IG, for example, in 35th place. Has to be a shocker for them. Reply Totem are certainly confident as well, and they'll be looking for more. GMT again, they could have been in a much worse position had it not been for that W. So many teams we can talk about. CLG have been on the up over late. We'll see if they can do better. Ganjamin was quite the story during the road to the playoffs, so we'll see if they can get more out of them. But we have to say, just heading back to that first page for a second, Cloud9, bearing in mind they've got a stand-in, are currently in 4th place, and that has to be respected. That has to be an overperformance, all things considered.
Absolutely. There we are right there, number 4, and it's certainly something to take into consideration. And, you know, I'm also going to give it to Reignite as well at number 12, still on this first page. And you know what, Xenox, I'm also going to talk a little bit about the winner's bracket is the goal for some of these teams, but let's be clear, that second page is still scary. That second page, there are some teams that could tear through the loser's bracket.
And you don't want to count them out. You know, it's only 6 games, as I said, 12 more still to play. These are really good teams. They know what they need to do to improve. They're not going to just, you know, go and sit in the corner and throw the toys out of the cot, right? Like they have a little bit of time as well to now get off and walk away and go and try and readjust going into these next couple of games. Obviously, you're going to have also a new group, new teams that you're going to play. So things can change pretty quickly. You can't rest on your laurels if you're in the top 20 either. Ultimately, we're going to probably see some shaking and moving even after the next 6 games.
Absolutely. And Bardov, I got to say, it's so interesting because we keep throwing wrenches at these players. Not only do we have 3 maps. We've got Group A, B versus B, Group C versus D. Next up, we've got A versus C on our main stage, D versus B on our secondary stream. And here we take a look at what we're going to be seeing up next. It's like, no, you can't stop, you can't rest, you can't get used to anything because by the time you do, things have shifted.
Okay, before we expand to the APAC area, we've got Alliance, Cloud9, NRG, Empire, 100 Thieves, and TSM all in the same lobby.
Bloodbath.
That is going to be really fun. We all love to see TSM versus NRG specifically, but we're going to have Tatsu in there on Vega with the Watson as well. And oh, how can I forget players? I almost didn't see them there for a second. Hard Ducky is going to be on the server. This particular matchup of players is going to be nasty. It's going to be beautiful from start to finish. The level of skill on these players is kind of OP for this particular matchup, A versus C. That's going to be maybe the groups of the day.
There it is, exactly. A versus C. It has been stated here, gang. It has been stated. Xenox, what are you looking forward to in this group A versus C? I mean, I think Bardov said it right. It's stacked.
I actually kind of probably stole my point because I was going to touch on Cloud9 and Alliance. As soon as I saw those two making their way over to the mainstream, I was like, oh, this is going to be juicy. Obviously, AD Raccoon, I've got to touch on them. Top spot at the moment. And I think, you know, again, when you talk about teams that do have substitutions, no Sally. Now, Karumpu has come in, was part of the main roster previously, so it's not too dramatic of a change. But to be top spot after losing a player yesterday, it's very significant that they've been able to readjust to basically what their old composition used to be.
Yeah, and you know what? Now we take a look, Bardov, at what is going to be on our secondary stream over a Nice Wigs World. We're seeing a lot of the teams. Obviously, we just saw Group B in our A versus B on the mainstream here, and they're going to go up against the likes of Group D.
Yeah, and this is interesting for different reasons. Looking at G2 and IG, for example, they're 2 teams who are looking for way better results, but they've got Optic coming in now, and we know how they like to dominate lobbies from round to round. They're going to be looking for those Ws. And maybe with some of these D groups struggling, it's a chance for GMT to try and right the ship and get some more results on the board. So there's a lot of different things going on here. Liquid will be looking for blood as well. So looking like B have looked a little stronger than what we've seen from some of these D teams so far, but maybe the mix, maybe the styles make the fights, and we'll see something stronger from D, and maybe we'll see some surprises.
Absolutely, and maybe we'll see some more contention from the drop. I don't know why I enjoy it so much. I love GMT, but it's so much fun. I'm sorry. I like aggro. It's fantastic. At any rate, yeah, we've got a ton in store. Still yet to come, as we mentioned. We've only been game 6. This is only round number 1 here. We're going to go and make it round number 2. We're going to have some fun here on the desk. We got a new desk analyst, and it's going to be a great time. And then, of course, we will find ourselves in round number 3 a little bit later today. But let's talk about what our talent said here for round numero uno. Let's see who came out on top. Looks like Bardo has the win.
Start as you mean to go on. I'm the only person in color. Caught you guys sleeping again.
Well, Team Empire certainly has done their job here today. Xenox, I think, we talk about the APAC North. You were,
I got the wrong Raccoon team.
It was...
yeah, you did.
I should have gone AD Raccoon instead. But no, look, honestly, I think the majority of these teams have been able to at least get up there and be amongst sort of the top echelon of their respective lobbies. So pat on the back for everyone.
Listen, I'm going to open a church of talent predictions. Okay. And there'll be Bitcoin donations will be welcome as well.
It's only round 1.
So look out for the information later on.
Amen. At any rate, if you would like to enter to win a Lenovo Legion 7 gaming PC, and who wouldn't? They're amazing. Head on over to twitter.com/Lenovo Legion. We're going to be giving that away on Sunday of playoffs. You're not going to want to miss that. Could be you. Head over to twitter.com/Lenovo Legion. And hey, it's just the beginning of this playoff journey, so don't worry. We're coming back for part 2 in just a few minutes, in just a little bit. We've got some great content for you in the meantime, but until we get back,